of what a fish in a suit of armor would look like, or a fish that thinks it's a lobster would look like. They would not have won any speed derby of any sort. On the other hand, it would have been armored to the point that it would have been very difficult to kill it.
But this well-protected creature is vulnerable to the changing environment. Each summer, colossal monsoons flood the rivers and streams where they make their home. Then the water quickly evaporates in the stifling heat. This relentless cycle has devastated their habitat. Bothriolipus and hundreds of other freshwater species are stranded in the mud, left to die in the scorching sun. "100,000 years after the superplume first assailed the Earth's crust, the merciless attack marches forward. Lava pours into the ocean. Toxic chemicals smother the sea bottom. The blazing sun scorches the globe. Earth's life force is fading fast. For the species that once flourished here, there's only one choice: adapt or die. How do we know so much about Tiktaalik? The very first Tiktaalik fossil was unearthed in Ellesmere Island, Canada, in 2004. Scientists wondered if this unusual fish ever walked on land. This wasn't easy to determine. The fossil Tiktaalik skeleton was only partially preserved, with no soft tissue like ligaments or muscles left behind. This presents a very difficult problem for scientists to unravel. How do scientists know Tiktaalik, the missing link between fish and amphibians, actually walked on land? The answer is hidden in the animal's bones. Tiktaalik's wrist bones attach to the elbow in a unique way, enabling this fish to do a push-up.
Because there are flexion points in, say, the wrist versus the elbow regions, this really represents one of the first elbow and wrist-like regions in an animal in history.
Though there is still plenty of debate, many scientists believe this feature helped Tiktaalik lift off the ground and amble around. Tiktaalik's descendants built on this amazing feature, and within 15 million years, they lived on land permanently. "250,000 years after our planet was attacked from within, death is winning the war against life. The superplume that first exploded near Siberia still spawns hellish volcanic eruptions. And just when it seems it can't get any worse, a surprising new killer joins the fray: plant life.
They had all the elements that they needed. An open landscape to occupy. They had water. They had plenty of carbon dioxide and sunlight.
Vegetation grows unchecked. Thousands of years of fallen leaves decay on the forest floor. The first layer of topsoil in Earth's history.
Prior to this, soils on Earth would have been very, very thin veneers covering bedrock. But once we had the development of deeply rooted plants and trees, they would have accelerated the formation of very, very deep and rich soil.
But what nurtures plants only brings death to the ocean. When it rains, soil washes out to sea. Algae absorbs the nutrients and grows out of control, sucking oxygen out of the water and suffocating marine life. Earth's coastlines are overrun. the sea turns green and sickly. Direct evidence of these horrible conditions is preserved in rock beds from the Devonian period.
In looking at Devonian oceans, one of the things that's very striking about sedimentary rocks deposited in these ocean basins is the abundance of very dark-colored sediments, black shales, dark-colored limestones. And these give evidence of very low oxygen conditions that were prevalent in many of the ocean basins at this time.
Just north of the equator, in what is now Morocco, the bottom waters have become a lonely graveyard. Bacterial slime is all that's left of this reef. For the few survivors, starvation is rampant. Once there were hundreds of Dunkleosteus here. Now only a handful are left. As hunger deepens, their insatiable appetites drive them to cannibalism. It's a terrible spectacle. Two starving sea beasts, each as big as a school bus, desperately trying to kill one another. A chunk out of one of these monsters is a good meal, but it can't stave off the inevitable. The king of the Devonian seas, the T-Rex of its time, is doomed. It is now 300,000 years into the extinction, and Earth inches closer to becoming a dead planet. The polluted oceans have claimed millions of species. The flame of a once flourishing animal kingdom is now flickering towards total annihilation. But a few resilient creatures are finding amazing ways to survive. In what is now Australia, an animal called Mater pisces weathers the storm. Although these fish are small enough to hold in your hand, they can crush a clamshell with their powerful tooth plates. But it's not their eating habits that make them so special. Mater pisces, which means mother fish, is the first animal known to give birth to live young. In 2005, a fossil Mater pisces was unearthed in Australia with the skeleton of another tiny fish in its abdomen. Scientists realized this had to be its offspring.
There are fossilized embryos of babies inside of this specimen that are not concentrated down low where, say, the stomach would have otherwise been, but are actually much, much more anterior or toward the front of the animal.
It's a critical adaptation. By protecting young inside their bodies, female Mater pisces help their children survive into adulthood. Maternal instinct, born out of Armageddon, but will it be enough? 750,000 years after the superplume went on the offensive, its fury has ravaged the planet. But now, it has a new tactic. To this point, eruptions have been confined to the sea. Now, it will attack by land. Geysers of liquid fire soar hundreds of feet into the air. A terrifying show of force. Ash fills the sky in a suffocating death cloud. the planet is turning itself inside out. This is hell on Earth.
The best way to describe the explosive power of a super eruption is to compare it to something in more recent times, such as a Mount St. Helens eruption. Any supervolcano eruption would be hundreds, if not thousands of times bigger than a Mount St. Helens eruption.
If you're living anywhere in the volcano's reach, even underwater, you're in big trouble. Our own ancestors, the Tiktaalik, scurry for cover. Some even try to find safety on land, but there's no salvation here.
Ash columns can be perhaps 40, 50 kilometers high, penetrating well into the stratosphere. Associated with these ash columns are pyroclastic flows, fluidized mass of material. They're 700 to 800 degrees Celsius at speeds of 100 or 200 miles per hour. This, of course, is going to annihilate anything in the immediate vicinity.
Hours after the initial eruption, lava continues to spew from great fissures in the earth. The eruption will go on for weeks, throwing enough debris into the air to fill the Grand Canyon. Smoldering chunks of rock ignite massive wildfires, adding to the pall that's forming overhead.
The combination of the volcanic gases and the ash would have made the sky very colored, vivid oranges and reds, along with this dark veil of ash that would diminish the sunlight altogether.
You'd feel the effects no matter where you stood on the planet. The ash rains down worldwide. There's no escaping the surreal new sky.
In an order of weeks to months, most of the ash will fall out of the atmosphere. However, gases that penetrate into the Earth's stratosphere can stay there for years.
The whole planet is shrouded in gloom, an omen of even worse things to come. For hundreds of thousands of years, Earth has been a global greenhouse, trapping solar energy and heating the surface. But now, the volcanic gases deflect the sun's rays. Hell is about to freeze over.
But all of a sudden now we get the cold. We have a tropical world that starts getting colder and colder and colder. And it's that really 1-2 punch that makes up this Devonian mass extinction. We should call it the Devonian mass extinctions.
For the suffering Tiktaaliks, the icy waterways become a tomb. Their population slowly dwindles until, in the end, there's but one left. And then this pivotal species is gone forever.
Tiktaalik is justly regarded as one of the great vertebrate pioneers in the sense that here's an animal which really paves the way. It is us way back in time. But Tiktaalik doesn't survive very long in this type of world. The reason Tiktaalik is justly lauded, it gives rise to other species which do better. Tiktaalik is but a stepping stone, a short-lived stepping stone.
It is now 1.5 million years after the extinction began. The volcanic winter lifts, and finally the super plume burns out. But the world will never be the same. At least 70% of all species have perished. Where once the oceans were a kaleidoscope of life and energy, now they are empty and gray. It is easy for us to think mass extinction only affects large animals. But in reality, those that suffer the most are usually small. In this catastrophe, the organisms that form coral reefs are slaughtered. They used to be the foundation for bustling cities. Now, they are simply gone.
You go from a situation where at its maximum extent, reefs were exposed over the course of about 5 million square kilometers. And those are reduced down to about 1,000 square kilometers at its maximum extent. So it's a huge depletion of reef communities.
Along with the reefs, jawless fish, the most primitive of all, are extinct. Armored fish like Dunkleosteus and Mater pisces will soon disappear. For millions of years, the extinction's beleaguered survivors struggled just to get by in this inhospitable world. Earth is perilously close to becoming a lifeless planet. But all is not lost. Trees, which once contributed to the mass extinction, now help bring the planet back to life. Each year, they add more and more oxygen to the atmosphere. Temperatures stabilize. The seasons return, and once again, life diversifies. The swamps of this time are the incubators for life's next great leap, one we humans have a personal stake in. It is now 10 million years after the superplume strike. In a shallow swamp in what is now Pennsylvania, a school of Bothriolipus scavenged for food. This strange fish is one of the lucky few to survive. They lived in many different environments all over the world, improving their odds of survival. But little do they know, an agile predator has them in his sights. It almost looks like Tiktaalik, but Tiktaalik is long extinct. In fact, this is one of Tiktaalik's descendants, a critical link to the evolution of humankind, the 5-foot-long Ichthyostega.
Ichthyostega is very interesting in the sense that this animal represents one of the first documented cases in the fossil record where we have a vertebrate with recognizable digits in its limbs. The hand of Ichthyostega is not known, but the hind limbs are very well known. And interestingly, there's not 5 digits, but there are 7.
Its ancestor Tiktaalik used both gills and lungs for respiration. Ichthyostega only uses lungs. A sturdier rib cage supports his body when out of water, relieving pressure on the lungs. That means Ichthyostega can draw much deeper breaths than Tiktaalik. Like a modern-day whale or dolphin, it gulps air at the surface before launching its attack.
If you think about it, in a very tangled swamp where you have a lot of vegetation material down and sticks, legs are really useful. You can pull yourself through branches and dead leaves and material. They're very useful for underwater appendages.
But Ichthyostega is as comfortable out of water as he is in it.
But Ichthyostega certainly could get out. Whether it could lift itself off its belly, there's a big debate about this. How strong were the shoulder girdles? How strong were the forelegs? But it is the ancestor that does give rise to animals that could hold themselves up, these first true amphibians.
From the ashes of one of Earth's most horrific disasters, life has made an extraordinary comeback and reached a new evolutionary milestone. The Earth's core continues to burn. At any moment, another super plume could assault our world. And if it does, Armageddon will return.